This is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine. Now, you wouldn't think us prison guards could be friends of inmates. But I guess I kinda took a liking to Jake, because he was clever. Turned out he was too clever for his own good. Jake was a pretty bad guy, in trouble with the law all his life. Started out stealing candy from babies, then downhill from there. Was in and out of reform school for years, till he finally got caught robbing a jewelry store. The judge threw the book at him. 20 years hard time in Sing Sing prison. Maybe the words Sing Sing sound kinda nice to the ear, but it's one of the toughest joints around. Jake fit in swell. The warden gave Jake a little pep talk when he got there. You know, the usual. Keep your nose clean. No one escapes from Sing Sing. That kind of stuff. Jake took it in, but he was thinking, I'm getting out of here, and ain't nobody gonna stop me. Okay, so Jake wasn't so hot with grammar. But when your smarts are street smarts, sometimes you don't end up speaking good English, like me. Jake got tossed out with an old guy, real old, name of Benny the Beanpole Burger. Skinny as a match, but not so fiery. Had a wooden leg and a glass eye, and a nose you wouldn't wish on a clown. Benny had been in stir since before the birth and death of disco. Rumor was he knew the Birdman of Alcatraz, back when he was the Eggman of Alcatraz. At first, Jake and Benny got on like oil and water. Old Benny made noises when he slept, and it drove Jake nuts. Eventually, Jake got used to Benny's hacking and honking. Besides, they had something in common. Benny, when he was younger, was all the time trying to escape. He tried digging a tunnel under the wall, tied sheets together to hoist himself out. He even tried the old file in the cake trick. 37 times he tried, and 37 times he failed. Even though his success rate was pretty lousy, Jake admired the old guy's stick-to-itiveness. But then old Benny got real sick. As he lay dying in the prison hospital, Jake was by his side. Benny motioned for Jake to lean into him and whispered in his ear, "Make the break, Jake, for old Benny's sake." Then he went off to that big house in the sky. This encouragement from the guy who practically became Jake's father was just the boost Jake needed. Back in his cell, Jake picked up his favorite book about Harry Houdini, the master of escape artists. Flipping through it, he saw a picture that gave him an idea. The next day, just before Benny's funeral, Jake made a call to a friend on the outside, a friend who happened to be one of the best hijackers north of the border. Jake told him to wait near the local cemetery and hijack Benny's coffin. An unusual request, to be sure, but Jake knew this hijacker could not resist the challenge. After the other cons paid their respects to the dear departed Benny, Jake slipped into the coffin and pulled the lid shut. Now, like I said, Jake was a pretty tough guy, but even a tough guy can get creeped out laying in a coffin next to a stiff. But then, getting out of the joint was worth a little creepiness. Later, the mortician and his assistant came in. They bolted the lid down, they lifted the coffin onto their trolley. It was kinda heavy, sure, but they figured the guy in the coffin must be one of those bodybuilder guys. As the coffin rolled along, Jake was having trouble not giggling. He was on his way to freedom. Everything was coming up roses, as they say. Jake had plans. Plans for burglaries, heists, robberies. He couldn't wait to get back into the game. Jake heard some doors opening and closing. Then the rolling stopped. He figured they were about to place the coffin inside the hearse. But Jake figured wrong. He heard a roaring kind of noise. Finally, the coffin started to move. Then Jake noticed it was getting kind of hot. Real hot, especially near his feet. And he smelled something burning. Unbeknownst to Jake was something that was becoming very clear, very quickly. His good buddy Benny requested a cremation. As his feet began to blister, Jake let out a huge yell and pounded like a madman on the lid. The coffin stopped rolling, then backed up. As the mortician's assistant put out the fire, his boss cracked open the lid. Jake pulled himself up and stared right into the eyes of the warden. This is a true story. It happened to a friend of mine. Jake became a model prisoner, content to live out the rest of his sentence, just doing whatever me and the other guards said. The words, "I will not try to escape," were burned into his memory and his feet.
Want to see a picture?